name's Carlos Aquino. I'm a compliance consultant and founder of Pharma Diversion LLC. A little history of who I am. I did 24 years in the Philadelphia Police Department. The last 10 was in the DEA task force in Philadelphia. And after that retirement, I joined DEA as a diversion investigator. I did 12 years there, 8 as an investigator, 4 as a group supervisor before I decided to retire the second time. And I started Pharma Diversion in January of 2009. Since then, I've been doing compliance reviews for the pharmaceutical industry. 40% of my business is manufacturers and distributors, and the other 60% are pharmacies, and maybe 2% of that might be doctors, physicians, and who want to know how to comply with DEA regulations. So I titled this my presentation here as How to Survive a DEA Inspection Series, uh, Compounding of Controlled Substances. I've done so many compounding pharmacies, and I've been out there to assist them in dealing with DEA. DEA is not the most easiest person sometimes they're dealing with. Their view of compounding is for 503A. I bring you a prescription, you turn around and you compound it and give it to me directly. And you know, and I know that that's not the way it happens, okay? So on this presentation, there's 3 areas I really wanted to cover. One, on the overview of the DEA regulations required of compounding pharmacies. The record keeping is the primary, followed by the security of controlled substances, followed by the due diligence that is required of you when you're filling a compounded prescription or selling a compounded product to an office for office use only. The second area that I'm looking at is the requirements for those records for the purchases and the storage of API, or active pharmaceutical ingredient, used for compounding purposes. And many a times I find that, you know, most pharmacies or compounding facilities are maintaining records, and sometimes the totals are not really not as accurate as they should be. And a lot of times what I do is I make recommendation, because in the eyes of DEA, they want it down to the gram and to the grain. And it's something that you need to also understand. And the third area that I'm covering on this presentation will be understanding what information needs to be on a compounding batch record, whether it's a 503A or whether it's a 503B. The justification of what controlled substance is being used for compounding is very important, because DEA looks at it this way. You start out with a certain quantity and you have to account for certain quantities. And many times when I'm looking at compounding charts or batch records, I find it that not all that information is in there. So I think I have some recommendations for you. Like I always say, and I'm going to tell you, just like I tell everybody else, it's not the way you're doing it, and it's not the way I'm telling you how to do it, but it's the way DEA wants it. And that's what I usually try to practice. My second topic here is neglected processes that will trip you up with DEA. There's 3 areas I like to cover. One, the most important is the need to maintain accurate perpetual inventory records for controlled substances. Even though the regulation does not require perpetual inventory, DEA does require complete and accurate records and complete and accurate inventory. The second area that I want to cover is the procedures for accounting for controlled substances controlled substance compounding waste. That's one of the areas where many compounding pharmacies, not only goes for pharmacies, compounding pharmacies, but also manufacturers, because waste is on the bottom of the scale, and everybody's always looking at the final product, but not how you made that product and the waste and the samples that go along with it. And the third area I want to really cover is how to maintain an effective security program for controlled substances. As I say, for controlled substances, not for your employees. Okay. DEA really has come down on many pharmacies for exactly that, especially when you have a theft or a diversion or a significant loss of controlled substances, where their concern is what was the effectiveness of your security system or your security program to guard against that diversion and theft. So with that, we'll continue on with this conversation. What I really like to have from this conference is I'm always in a learning process. I always say, the day I stop learning, that's the day I die. I look forward to seeing what other people have to say. And I'm primarily looking at issues with controlled substances. As you're aware that DEA has no jurisdiction over non-controls. So I'm looking at the areas of controlled substances. I'm looking at the input of other people in this conference. And I always say, I probably will learn something new before the end of the conference. So I look forward to this moment.